Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives with lots of years experience in law enforcement. And if you like all things true crime related from the police perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Debbie Collier case. It is a doozy, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things happening. We're going to get into it, but before we do, I want to say a special thank you on behalf of Ed and myself to all the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all of the subscribers and folks who make this a great place. We want to give thanks and praise to each and every one of you, and thank you for your contributions to Crime Time with DutyRon. Ed, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, doing great. I'm glad to see all our friends in the chat tonight, the usual suspects. And
They're
I'm
all
not talking
all
Kevin
assembled.
Spacey.
Yeah, and some of them are saying I'm present for duty. PFD.
Present for duty.
Yeah. So
are we having a roll call?
Not tonight. Ed, we have Forensics Friday on a Monday night. We're doing Forensic Friday on Monday. This is a dry run because we're going to only do that show once a month. But this is a case that is right up your alley because it involves a crime scene. It involves potentially multiple suspects. It involves endless possibilities.
Multiple locations.
We're going to just show quickly for some of the folks who might be living under a rock for the last couple of weeks. This thing started on September 10th. Actually, the evening of September 9th was the last time her husband saw her. And we are going to play a little bit of some court TV footage. This is Vinny, our good friend over at Court TV. Mike King was on with him the other night. He did a great job. Kudos to Mike King from Profiling Evil. Let's just play it. Yeah, Mike, great job. Let's play a little bit of this, give everybody a good overview.
Murder mystery, right? Murder mystery. A lot of the trials we cover, detectives will talk about solving a murder mystery. You'll have defense attorneys saying this is still a murder mystery as to who killed who. This case right here, this is a real murder mystery. There are a lot of clues. There's a lot of evidence. And it seems like it's something that should be able to be put together, except for the fact that you look at all these things, and as the detectives described today, every time they're on something, a curveball, meaning like this evidence is there, but like one piece is over here, another piece is over here, and you got a piece over here. You can't put it all together. Doesn't seem to make common sense in so many of the cases. Even the murder mysteries we cover here on Court TV, you know, once the evidence starts trickling down, you can put it together pretty quickly, right? Yeah, it's a murder mystery. No one's been charged, no one's been convicted, but hey, I think we know who did it. That's not the case here. The case of Debbie Collier involves a lot of unusual circumstances. Everything from where she was, why she was there, what she was buying, why she was buying it, the crazy Venmo message, what does that mean? The amount on the Venmo, where is everybody else at this time? And why on earth did she end up where she ended up?
I'm going to stop it there because Ed and I tonight are going to get into the forensics aspect of this situation and this unusual murder mystery. We know that she was at a certain location at certain times. We are going to get into crime scene, evidence collection. We're not going to talk about this whole case per se, but it is going to take us into certain areas. And Sleuthy, thank you so much for sending me, Sleuthy Goosey, for sending me the timeline on Twitter. I have it. I'm looking at it right now, and she puts together an unbelievable timeline. Ed, let's get into this. We have this potential recovery location. We can't necessarily call that the actual murder scene until everything comes back. Do you want to talk just a little bit about what you know about this case, Ed?
Well, first of all, my condolences to the family. So we have this, for all intents and purposes, lovely mother out and about on her business. We got her in a rental car rental minivan, Pacifica, I believe, and she's driving. It's caught on camera on the highway. A little bit before she shows up at the Family Dollar store, she's caught on the Family Dollar store coming in on their security cameras and checking out. And then she spends about 10 minutes in her car in the parking lot. What's interesting to me is it's unknown if there's any images that show anybody else in that vehicle. It was, according to the timeline that I reviewed, it was probably around that time in the parking lot that she sends that cryptic message to her daughter through Venmo and the money to her daughter. Okay. Then fast forward. Okay. So that was September. That was September 10th.
Yep.
And then on September 11th, less than 12 hours later, utilizing some of the tricks that we talked about that we can gather from the vehicle. Her vehicle was located via the infotainment system and the data that's going back and forth between the rental car people and the vehicle, and that sends the police to this location where the car is there, as you can see it in the rain. Okay, and now it's some kind of miner's path or something like that, a logging path or whatever the case may be. And they go down that path and they find her partially clothed, burnt remains on the downslope of a hill with one hand by a tree, holding onto a tree or something to that effect.
Yes.
And from there, now we have a full-blown crime scene investigation. So we have the vehicle, as you can see
this
here.
This is her husband right there. That's her husband, Steve, on scene, and her daughter also responded to that scene. Mm-hmm. Ed, I wanted to ask you quickly, and I know I want you to continue on with this, but in the police report, it said her nude body. So a lot of people getting caught up on the nude body. And the news is reporting partially nude. It was the actual 61 that I read. I have it saved, and it said nude remains. So,
well, it said, I read a report too that was on Court TV. One report says nude, and the other report says partially nude.
Yeah.
So the upper body clothing was missing, and the lower body clothing was present.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who's throwing in those super chats. Dr. Ed Moskowitz sent in $20, sending us a bunch of accolades. As you know, he's our family doctor here on Crime Time with DutyRon. Him and his wife, Julie, says, thank you, DutyRon and Ed. Thank you for staying factual, and you both are selfless and extremely professional. Platinum, and we learned so much. Love and respect. Thank you, Doctor.
Love Dr. Moskowitz and just Julie. Love them to death.
Yes.
They are our true crime family doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheila, thank you for that super sticker. Much appreciated. Ed, continue what you're saying. I'll just let this play in the background, and then we'll come back to this. This is all crime scene stuff.
Okay, so now, it's raining, which is not very good for forensics in and of itself. But, it's not too detrimental to fingerprints on the exterior of the vehicle or possible DNA. They towed the car by putting a set of dollies underneath the rear wheels. Now, rear and front wheels, they lifted up. Actually, it's the tow on the rear wheels, the dollies on the front wheel, because this model comes in either all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. So this is the front-wheel drive version, and they put the dolly in the front to lift the wheels off, and they're towing it out of there. I like the fact that...
What's the reasoning why they put it up on that for our internet detectives at home?
Well, if they don't have the keys to the vehicle, they can't put the vehicle into neutral to get the vehicle to roll on its own. Otherwise, they would be tearing up that transmission. Okay. Right. And I like the fact that they didn't wrap the vehicle, because wrapping the vehicle and putting it on a flatbed and then driving it from there to a forensic garage to examine it could cause damage to the fingerprints and the DNA that's on the outside of the vehicle. Remember, that stuff is not fixed to the outside of the vehicle. So, like wrapping it at this point would cause friction as the car is being driven on the highway. and
Right.
that tarp would be rubbing back and forth, and there's the potential to rub the fingerprints off, obliterate the fingerprints, and damage the DNA or
Right.
whatever else might be there. So the rain in and of itself is not going to hurt, but the rain, now you're talking about damaging other types of forensic evidence that can be there. Now you got a muddy trail because the pavement only goes up so far and then stops, and then you have your dirt floor trail into this wooded area. Now I'd be looking for footwear impressions all along this route, single, multiple. Now, again, the rain can hinder in this. Now, also law enforcement, the EMS, so the medical examiners personnel, anybody that is responding here, if, because one of the first types of evidence that get destroyed at a lot of crime scenes is the footwear impressions, as emergency responders are running through the scene, not giving it any, paying it any mind or giving it any attention. And so I would be looking for that. I would be also to see if her footwear, if she's still wearing her footwear, and then what's on the bottom of her footwear. Are there signs that she walked down this path? Are her shoes muddy? Is she barefoot, or is she, still wearing her shoes?
Can I ask you a quick question? And this is, I know, going to come in the chat, and I've already scanned DutyRon.com. There's tons of these. Tire tracks. We have asphalt like pavement here, it looks like. This is
Right.
as the Habersham police officer who was first on the scene. He said to his sergeant in that narrative that we read that he saw that vehicle there the day before, but didn't think anything of it because many people park there. It's like almost like a park and then walk into that wooded area, or maybe just a park and rest. There's no issue with this is the medical examiner's vehicle picking up the body now. There's no issues with vehicles going in and out of there because, of course, we don't, if it was dirt, then we would want it to stay on the paved road. We wouldn't want vehicles going back and forth on there.
Well, you'd want to, yeah. The odds of them having a second set of tire prints or something to that effect on the pavement are relatively small here. And then given the rain, if there were like some kind of muddy tire there, it probably washed away already. But you want to look at the grass areas on either side of the pavement. You want to look on the shoulder areas to see if you can find any evidence of like a secondary car. Maybe there was a car following her car and picked up the suspects and drove off after they did their crime here, or maybe this isn't the location of the original crime scene, and this is what we call a dump crime scene,
Right.
where the crime occurred someplace else and then the body is dumped here. I'm sorry if that sounds unsensitive, but that's what happens in a lot of crime scenes. It's not the original crime scenes; it's what we call the dump scene. So, getting back to the forensics now, I understand from the reports that many of the items that were purchased at the Family Dollar store were in fact located here as well and recovered, and that doesn't help. I just said let's search the grass, right? And then I don't know if that was done or anything, but then they drove up on it. But anyhow, so a lot of that was recovered here. Now, that's another thing too. What was the necessity to buy those items, those purchases? And apparently, the blue tarp was partially burnt. Was that torch lighter that she purchased used to set that blue tarp on fire?
Will they be able to determine that, Ed, through forensics to see? I mean, how would you be able to determine that?
Well, they would look at the burn pattern, and then they would try to see if there were any accelerants used, or they would then look to see, okay, what kind of heat source potentially could have been used to set this on fire. And they can conduct some controlled tests with the rest of the blue tarp, or go out to their family store and purchase another similar blue tarp, and then do some controlled burn test on it. That said, the tote bag, raincoat, that was interesting. The rain poncho. What was going on here? Was she going to a sporting event? She's dressed like she's going to a sporting event. Was she going to a game someplace? She's sporting her team colors there. Was she meeting somebody? Or what is going on? Why did she purchase this thing? Was she told to purchase these things? It's just interesting because well, like kind of think back to a case I had with Miss Irene Silverman, who was a millionaire widow who was targeted by the Santa and Kenneth Kynes, and the Kynes had a list of things to buy, in and in that list was shower curtain, duct tape, all these things to be used in Mrs. Silverman's demise, and wrap her up in the shower curtain, wrap it with the duct tape and all this stuff, and dispose of this body
Hmm.
somewhere in New Jersey, that we a construction site that we never did find. But it just kind of reminds me of that. She's buying all these things that could be used in her demise, and in fact, the blue tarp was part of that. Where's her clothing? Okay. She, if she was or her upper body was exposed, where's that clothing, the upper body clothing, in relationship to where, was it in there, was it anywhere in there? Now, so you have fire evidence, and that has to carefully be collected, especially in the rain. um, Now I'd like to see too, she, or that hand that, by the tree, it's like she was holding on to the tree. Was she sliding down the embankment, and then she grabbed onto that tree? She wasn't dead yet, but was she burned there? Was she burned at another location? Was she tied to the tree? Is there any ligature marks on her wrist that maybe they couldn't see at the scene, but because of the bruising would develop later at the morgue? What was going on? A lot of interesting things here. I would love to have worked this crime scene.
Yeah, I feel horrible for her husband. He's standing there in the rain with an umbrella, not knowing, what happened. And he has been cleared, as people are speaking about in the chat. He worked for one of the football stadium parking, so he had his alibi. He was there the whole part of the day that on the day that was in question, on the 10th, and he returned home, I think, a little bit after 4 or 5 o'clock, and then called the police. And that 911 phone call is available. I think most people here in the chat have heard it. We're going to spare you listening to that, because we're just going to be, again, speaking about the crime scene and what crime scene investigators do. Ed is rapid firing through the crime scene, which is what he does, but he does tell it to you in layman's terms. And there's a second component to this. He's not yet through with the crime scene. There's a second component to this, is when they get this vehicle back to a controlled environment, and then they get her remains back to the medical examiner's office. They do all kinds of stuff that we're going to be talking about, and looking for particular hemorrhaging and all different sorts of stuff, because we don't know what
Right
kind of
now,
trauma she experienced or what she went through. Right, Ed?
for those who don't know what petechial hemorrhaging is, it's usually associated with asphyxiation or strangulation, where you cut off the blood supply, and the little tiny blood vessels in the eyes and the eyelids and the lips burst, the capillaries burst, and create these uh, telltale signs of this occurring. Um, and yeah, we don't know. I mean, the car has to be examined, uh, dried out, fingerprints, DNA, hairs and fibers, all through the inside. Definitely got to get the data, because her driving pattern of these days were kind of abnormal. She went so many miles out of her way, and then back and so forth. Why did she go to that family dollar store? So forth.
50
Uh,
some odd miles away from her home. There was so many
exactly.
other options close by. What brought
Yeah.
her to that location? Yeah.
What is going on here, right? So they got to track the movement of the vehicle, which they can do. They can download the data from at least two data sources in the vehicle that I'm aware of, and then obviously they got all the phones. Everybody's got the phones, so they got the daughter's phone, the husband's phone, her phone. They're going to be, and you don't need the physical phone, folks. You can go right to the. They served warrants on the carriers, and they can get all the data: who's texting, phone calls, movements, GPS locations, all that stuff that's bouncing in and out of the phone on the cell towers, where these phones are pinging, and so forth, to triangulate locations, and all that data, all that digital evidence has to be looked at.
As Ed, as you can see, allegedly puts on the screen, and we were aware of this. He or she says, "DutyRon, not sure if you'll see this." Yes, I did. Family Dollar to the pull-in is 17 minutes. So from where she shopped to this location is 17 minutes. but her drive up to where she purchased those items is what we're talking about. It was a good 50 minutes, I believe. And there's lots of data. There's lots of school camera footage now that's out. There's so much electronics to this, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
This car, this Chrysler Pacifica, it's a limited. You could see it in the back. I don't know, Ed, if you could see this as good as I could see it. I'm going to put it full screen, and I'm going to take this comment. Thank you, allegedly, for that comment. On the back right, as you're looking at the screen right here where my cursor is, it says limited right there.
I've rented these vehicles before. So
yeah, this is a fully loaded model, and that is one of a really good thing. Enterprise hooked her up with like a really good vehicle, and that infotainment system. We're going to have Tommy come back on from the NYPD, and he's going to talk about some of the data, and that's going to be instrumental in solving the mysteries of where she went, where she drove to when she was off camera, because the GPS and all of the electronics in this vehicle, Ed, I know you'll agree with me on this because we spoke about it, are outstanding, and it's going to track all of the movement of this vehicle where leading up to where this car parked right here.
And guess what? If there was somebody else in that vehicle with her, or if there was someone tailing her, and her phone is pinging on cell towers, well, guess what? Their phones are pinging on the same cell towers. So they can look at whose phones were pinging on the same cell towers in the same time frame, in the same areas. And so now you can get a list of suspects that you'd have to run down and send the detectives out and canvass and interview and so forth and so on.
Here's one of our very keen watchers here. Richard Hodge says the passenger side view mirror is pushed in. On the passenger side, you can see it clearly. It's angled in. Some of the cars, when you hit the remote or if you lock it, the mirrors go in. We got to look at the other side to see what we got. But good eye there, Rich. Yeah, that's pretty good. I didn't even notice that. Then again, I didn't look at it that hard. So yeah, I mean the data that comes out of these newer vehicles, that's a late model, probably a 2021, 2022. Let's see what we got here.
So Tennessee girl asks if it was leather seats, what would that mean? I guess forensically, if the mirrors are in too on the driver's side. Well, it's a better seat for fingerprints, and not so good for in terms of surviving DNA if somebody is touching it. Like whereas the DNA in a cloth seat gets absorbed into the cloth, where the DNA on leather typically doesn't get absorbed into the leather, but just rest on top of it.
So it's on the surface,
right? Whereas cloth, you can't get fingerprints from cloth.
Adria Martin says, "Why would any idiot carry a cell phone to a dump or on living scene?" Some of our best criminals are not rocket scientists. They're not brain surgeons. So some of them are pretty dumb. And everybody carries a cell phone. It's just how things go nowadays. I know some people, if you leave the house without the cell phone, they have to turn back around, even if they're 30 miles away to get it.
That's the daughter right there, right? That walked up.
I don't think so. That looked like a deputy.
No. Go back. Go back. Right, she'll come into frame shortly. As the car was being pulled out, she was walking up.
That's a sheriff.
Sheriff. Oh, that's the sheriff?
Yeah, sheriff, pregnant sheriff.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But the daughter was on the scene, allegedly, and well, not allegedly, it was reported in the report, and it said in the report that she was distraught and hysterical. I think those were the words they used.
Yeah, I saw her interview. She was very emotional. Now, going back to the court TV footage that you showed previously, that those gloves and that material that were seen in the the UK paper are in that footage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I saw that, and it was a pair of blue gloves, which you and I both know. Sometimes EMS or paramedics or people that come on the scene, they're known to sometimes throw that stuff down at the crime scene. You teach this, Ed. Is that a big no-no? How do you teach this to these folks?
Well, I try my best to teach EMS not to leave their debris at the crime scenes. I get it; life safety comes first, and when they're working on a victim, I try to teach them not to take their EMT shears and stick it into the bullet hole in the clothing and then cut through that to get to the wound. I get it; it's the fastest way to get to the wound, but I try to teach them not to destroy all this types of evidence, because there could be plenty of other types of gunshot residue and other things associated around that bullet hole entrance that you're destroying. But it goes in one ear and out the other. That's why I love EMS. Don't get me wrong, but to a forensic guy like me, I call EMS stands for emergency medical services. But to a forensic guy like me, it stands for the evidence mangling specialist. Okay, because they know how to mess up my crime scene, and then they leave me puzzles to put back together, like the victim's cut off clothing, and then I have to put the pieces of the puzzle of the clothing back together to get a picture of what kind of damage occurred to this clothing, other than the EMT shears. There's bullet holes, there's stab wounds, and I got to put that back together and photograph it and document it and measure it and package it properly. They leave all that stuff in a nice pile for me at the crime scene with their gloves and their tourniquets and their rubber, bands and all the stuff and the packaging. So I try to teach them not to do that. I try to teach them, but life safety, and then I teach the first officers the same thing. If you're going in with gloves and booties and everything, you don't leave these things around. And same thing, I know here in New York City, our medical examiner's office, they don't do any of that. They don't leave their debris. They know well enough. They know the protocols. What they go in with, they come out with. We go in with a garbage bag. When we get our PPE, personal protective equipment like gloves, contaminated, we would take them off, throw them in a garbage bag, get a new set of PPE, and start working again.
Right.
So
now you see this. This is the actual. This is the video surveillance outside of the Family Dollar. And you could see her clearly in the car, fumbling, doing whatever she's doing in the car in the front seat. You could see her red image there in that red circle.
Mm-hmm.
So she's moving about and doing whatever she's doing. She backs the vehicle up and then parks it up here. And that's that 9 minutes that she sits in a parking lot, I believe.
Well, clearly in that video, there's nobody in the front passenger seat.
I could see somebody in the front passenger seat here. In the driver's, not the passenger.
Yeah, the driver's. Yeah, I see her in the driver's seat.
But Ed, if there was somebody back here,
you can't see it. The windows are too tinted. Yeah.
So there are people who say, well, maybe there was people outside in that car with her, tricking her to get those things to do, who knows what. To go to. Somebody said, to go to a game. What with the paper towels and the lighter, maybe to tailgate. I don't know. Nobody knows. This is a huge mystery. And it would just be all speculation at this point.
There was a question here in there about what do I think it means that they just left that car, abandoned that car right there on the side of the highway. And from a forensic psychological profiling, it typically means disorganized criminal. It wasn't something that was well thought out and planned.
Right.
Something done in a rush.
And there were some people that were talking about this silver car being involved in it, but that was pretty much debunked. I watched the.
And that's her leaving, right?
Yeah, she leaves. This
now
car.
Here this car goes.
Yeah, it goes, but it goes out here to the left, out the driveway up and to the left.
Right.
And then she continues on to the right, onto the highway there, and it was just a short distance from there. But listen, again, I think here, what we're going to be relying on primarily, is the data, the electronic data, the forensics. What was? Hold on a second. Let me stop that. what was recovered inside that vehicle? What type of evidence was on her body or on anything?
Right.
Because we don't know what they recovered from that scene.
What's under her nails? We don't know the or cause and manner of death. We don't know if it
Right.
was blunt force trauma, if it was a gunshot wound, if it was strangulation, asphyxiation. We don't know any of that yet. We don't know if it was the fire. Maybe her upper clothing was consumed in the fire,
Right.
and maybe that's why she was partially nude. The blue tarp was on fire, according to reports. And there seem to be photographs of these gloves and some fire damaged materials that were left behind at the scene. Now, I could see the gloves potentially being the medical examiners or the crime. I'm hoping it's not the crime scene people, and I'm really hoping it wasn't the medical examiners either, because they should know better not to do that, not to dispose of gloves like that. The rule of thumb, the protocol is what you bring in, you take out. You don't leave any trash behind. You don't leave any debris behind.
Let's say that slowly. Crystal, thank you for becoming a YouTube member, and thank you for everyone who's been giving the super chats and stuff. What you take off, what you
take into that crime scene, you leave with. You don't leave it in the crime scene. You don't create a garbage pile in a crime scene.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And when I read on the sheriff's website, they touted themselves as having a elite crime scene unit. I don't know if you saw that writing, Ed.
I did read their website. Yes, they're a 90-person police agency that covers
90 members.
Yes, that covers 270 square mile area with a population of about 44,000, 45,000 people in that county.
Right.
And that's not to say that there's some incorporated towns in there that have their own police departments. So and they're also doing the jails. The sheriff's office is also doing the jails. And I'm not sure if I saw courts. I can't remember.
Yeah. When the police and the investigators do their victimology, they look at this victim and they say, okay, who's surrounding her? Who are her direct contacts? The husband, we know he's been cleared, but they're claiming that nobody is cleared as of yet. They're looking at the husband. They're looking at her daughter. They're looking at her boyfriend, the daughter's boyfriend. And the most obvious suspects are the daughter and the boyfriend, right? But we need to not have tunnel vision. We need to have a broad spectrum of all different possibilities. Like I would say to myself, wait a minute. If they are drug users and alcohol users, if they're substance abusers, which we know that they are, what about their people that they hang out with? What is their motivation? Their motivation is to get more money, to get more drugs, get more money, to get more alcohol. So this ties into this whole Venmo sham of sending 2,300 and change back to the daughter and making it look like she's been abducted and they won't let me go. The whole thing just doesn't add up. It is just a whole bowl of sour grapes to me. And at the end of the day, it's up to the police and the investigators to figure that mess out. And they're going to figure it out through all of this sloppiness that's left behind. There's quite a bit of sloppiness. And people are getting caught up on that whole, they left the gloves, they left charred. Yeah, that's a bad thing. And you and I both said it to each other today. Oh no, not this again, right?
Yeah. Again, we don't know what the association is. Okay, but it seemed to be some charred paper there that I don't know if it's associated with the fire or the body or whatever the case may be. But and there seems to be some red material. I don't know if it's associated with the red tote bag that she purchased. But if it is, it shouldn't have been left there. The gloves definitely shouldn't be there. I don't know where they came from or whose they are, but if they were law enforcement or the medical examiners or EMS or whoever, they shouldn't be there. Okay. Quick, I got to give a shout out because she's asking for it. Mama Griffin, who just became a subscriber about a week ago. Well, thank you for your subscription and welcome to the family.
Yes, welcome. And we're honored to have all of the folks who become channel members, Patreon supporters. And if you're not yet subscribed to DutyRon and Ed Wallace, Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. We bring you all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective. Ed, I got a couple of minutes to play some of the press conference, because the reason I want to play this is because the lead detective talks about a couple of things that you were just talking about here. So I'm going to let this play as we look at the chat. If you guys have questions, put it in the chat. We'll try to cherry pick some of them and write them down. Integrity is here. Trish Norman, AMA is here. Brenda Redmond. Good to see some of the returning people and some new faces. It's great to see everybody here. And let's take a peek at this. I know we all listen to it, but I think it's important that we hear just a little bit more of this. And Ed and I will pick out some of the finer points of this. So
I'd like to give you a brief synopsis of where we are to date on the investigation. The results of the autopsy are still pending. The results regarding the analysis of the items we've submitted to the crime lab are still pending. We are now just beginning to get responses to the search warrants and the subpoenas in the case to date. We can tell you that we have received additional footage from a security camera from a business near the Family Dollar store. That additional footage shows us that Deborah Collier walked out of the Family Dollar store at 3:09, got into her van, and remained in her van in the parking lot for 10 minutes before leaving the parking lot and heading south on Georgia 15, Highway 441, US 23. This tells us that the time frame is actually narrowed a little further for this case to begin at 3:19 p.m. on Saturday, September 10th, and ending at 12:44 Sunday, September 11th, the time of the discovery. Please understand that this case is very complex in nature and has a lot of questions and unknowns that aren't found in a typical death investigation. It is going to take significantly more time than the 19 days that have passed since the discovery to solve this crime. We also want you to know that we are working diligently to solve this case. We are trying to obtain as much information as possible so that we can put together facts and evidence to support a motive and also to identify a person or persons of interest. At this time, I'd like to call up lead investigator George Cason to assist with answering the questions that you may have. George.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here, being part of this. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions.
this audio is a little rough, but it gets better.
Insight of where we're at and kind of what we're dealing with. First off, I want to start off by saying we have received a lot of questions that y'all have sent in. Some of these questions, the information that is pertaining to those questions is very sensitive information. We will try to answer them to the best that we can, but there will be information that we need to retain just for the simple fact of it being very sensitive, and we don't want our potential persons of interest to be able to get a hold of this information. Just so that way it does not jeopardize the furtherance of our investigation. As far as some of these questions that were asked, I'm going to kind of go through a list of them and try to give answers as best as possible to you. One of the first questions that was asked is, can you confirm the Venmo message from the daughter, from mom to daughter was sent to mom's phone? We're still waiting more information that we have requested to confirm or deny where the Venmo was sent from, but we can confirm that Amanda did receive the Venmo. She did receive money. That much we do know right now. Continuing on, our next question was, are you in possession of Collier's cell phone and where was it found? Yes, we are in possession of that cell phone. We do have it in evidence and it was located at the crime scene. The next question that was asked was, what was Collier's cause of death? And as Colonel Kogod mentioned, we are still awaiting the full report from the medical examiner's office. Once that comes in, we will absolutely update everyone on those findings. What records and data have we analyzed? Due to that being sensitive information, much as the disclaimer that I gave when I first stepped up here, we don't want to reveal any information that could possibly be a potential or potentially jeopardize our investigation where our suspects will get that information. There was a question about Deborah's phone records. We have served multiple search warrants on multiple different cell phone carriers. We are working with them to get all pertinent data from those devices and from those carriers. So hopefully we'll be able to develop more of a timeline, a better timeline, and hopefully be able to find out more information about what exactly happened. Inclusion of family members, a question was related to that, is that right now we have not ruled anyone out at this point. We have ever developing leads and are gradually having information that we have requested come in. So we're still in the process of trying to find persons or person of interest. And as that information starts to trickle in, it will actually help us develop more information for y'all to have. We're continuing to investigate Deb's activities from September 10th through to September 11th, which is also going back to the timeline. We're gradually just getting more information in. We want to know just as much as anyone else does, and we are working, as Colonel Kogod said, we're working diligently. We've lost a lot of sleep, as such should be, in this investigation. We've devoted a lot of time to this investigation. There was a question about what search warrants have been executed. As far as the search warrants that we have done, again, we cannot give that information out just for the simple fact that it may jeopardize and give the information out to possible potential persons of interest. And we don't want to basically show our hand before we have facts. And as Colonel Kogod said, then a couple other questions that were kind of obtained as far as Deborah's timeline. We have obtained additional footage from the parking lot, as he described, where she is in her 2022 Chrysler Pacifica van in the parking lot of the Family Dollar, which is obviously joined by other businesses. We've obtained additional footage and found that she stayed in that parking lot an additional 10 minutes. From that 10 minutes at 3:19 p.m., she leaves the parking lot and begins to head southbound on Georgia 15, which is the main highway, the 4-lane highway that connects Raven County to Habersham. She starts traveling southbound towards Tallulah Falls, which is just inside Habersham County. We are still in the process of trying to obtain videos from other locations and other businesses along that route, and we encourage any business along that route that might have cameras, please reach out to us. Look through your video cameras and reach out to us. That way we can have a meeting with you.
All right, this is pretty long. I'm going to end it there. I think it was important that you guys heard what these guys are working with. Ed, you're still muted. Again, the theory of the parolee who she had the accident with like a week or so before that led her into this rental is, again, it's up to the detectives to weed that part and that story out. But the bottom line is that would be a far reach for this guy to have a fender bender with her. He begged her not to go to the police. She still did. Parolees usually do not have restrictions on their driving unless they were predicate, repeat offenders with DWI and it involved in a fatality. But rarely do you see parolees, because I worked in a parole task force with the New York State Parole, have restrictions on driving, because most of the parole board, they want them to be duly employed. They want them to be able to go back and forth to work. Mass transit is an option here in the city, but in some places it's not. So I don't really, that whole story that her Debbie's sister told didn't make sense to me. And it might make sense. It might be true, but I don't think that this parolee is going to go out of his way to come up with this elaborate plan of, finding her out in the middle of that location and stalking her and killing her like that, and the Venmo thing. So I would say that's very low probability.
It'd be easy to run down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so-
For us to be where we're at from September 10th now to into October, early October, I would have to imagine that cell phone data and all of that stuff, at least preliminarily, they said that her phone was recovered at the scene, but it was crushed or smashed. From some of the folks that we've dealt with while we were active, they could take a phone and bring it into the lab and work it up and get that thing going. And we're not even looking at really major water damage. We're looking at, potentially being out in the rain, but most of these phones are IP68 rated, where they can withstand some water. It is what it is. Doodlebug Lori, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. She says, DutyRon and Ed, thank you for what you do. And super mods too. Thank you to the mods. The mod squad is great here. But yeah, so the silver car, not involved. I think that the obvious is the daughter's boyfriend, who showed and exhibited on body cam footage a lot of erratic behavior. The daughter is not an angel either. She's got a rap sheet. I got a whole thing here. She's been charged with battery, fake drug tests to the courts, assault and battery on her boyfriend, domestic violence, violation of an order of protection in 2013, and the latest arrest was 5/21 when it was a cross complaint in that body cam footage that we saw. So she's, 36 years old, I believe, Amanda, and she's got a lot of collars under her belt. Andrew, a liar. He told the police officer that he's never been in any trouble, that he doesn't do drugs. That, in fact, is not the truth. He also has been locked up. Domestic violence, drug charges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Violating order of protection.
Right, VOP. And he left that very threatful note. If you continue to call the police on me and get me locked up, it's not going to end good for you. So these are all things that are strikes against him. It doesn't make him guilty. It doesn't say that he committed this crime, but at the end of the day, these are things that, are not looking good, and he's not acting right. He's claiming that he's scared for his life, and all kinds of stuff I'm reading online from not fake book, but I'm reading this through the media. There was a news reporter who went out to the house and interviewed Amanda, and it just, to me, I just didn't. By a show of hands in the chat, who saw that interview with Amanda from that news reporter from Atlanta? It really, just for me, it didn't seem authentic. It seemed very staged. The emotion that she was showing didn't seem real. She was looking away. She couldn't stare the reporter in the face. Ed, did you see that interview?
I did see the interview, yes.
Mm-hmm. So it is what it is, but that doesn't, you need to get substantial evidence to charge somebody. And that's what crime scene and evidence collection, that's why it's so important, Ed. Correct?
Yeah, I'd like to, again, there's another thing. She seemed to be, Debbie seemed to be short in stature. I'd like to see the position of the seat, the driver's seat, to see if there was any indication that it was moved back for a taller person to drive it. Again, we need a thorough investigation and thorough examination of that vehicle. All these things have to be documented. It's another mystery, as we said, but I think this one is going to be solved. It's just another useless and wasteful act of violence that didn't need to happen, and another tragic life lost.
I agree wholeheartedly on that. Ed, we have a lot of people who are sending in questions and comments. And as we wrap this thing up, because we're getting towards the end here, I want to just play a quick. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd like to see that video again with the clothing. Because remember, Debbie was wearing that red football jersey.
Right. And that was the Court TV one that I played first, right?
Yeah. And then the photograph. See, folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, some civilians, citizens, went to the crime scene after the crime scene had been taken down, and came across those gloves and some burnt items and that red material, and photographed it and sent it off to a paper in the UK who published it. I don't know why. Okay, there. Now this is
This is from the crime scene.
from the paper, or
These are from civilians took this photograph and sent it to the paper, I believe.
yeah. So we don't know the connection here. I mean, there's that red fabric. There's some kind of cloth. There seems to be some kind of barcode. I don't know if that's associated with anything she purchased at the family tree.
It looks
Family
like this
dollar store.
it looks like a little ring of some sort down here of
I don't know,
something.
like a pull tab, like
Yeah,
from
yeah.
an old can of beer or something. Don't know
Uh-huh.
what it is, but I don't know the connection to this, if it is anything, but there's definitely something burnt there, and barcode information, and back of a label. You can get some idea of what was there. But if now that was in the UK paper, right? The Sun, was it, or was it
This was in the Daily Mail.
the
I
Daily
believe.
Mail? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And let's go back to that footage from that you played from Court TV.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this wide shot, and it looks like there's scattered. This is what we looked at in that second picture right here. Is where the glove is, but then there's like scattered
Yeah.
paper towels all underneath that tree trunk there.
Yeah, and is this in association with the tree that she was hanging on to? I mean, is
I
that
believe so. And there's
nearby?
charring here. This looks
Yeah,
like
it looks like it
all
was. Yeah, it looks
burnt.
like there was burnt there. Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
That if that in fact was there at the time of the crime scene, it should have been collected and submitted to the lab for analysis.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, where do you want me to start with this? You
Well,
want me to?
they had that one image of that same gloves and so forth in the.
There it is. I see
Okay.
it. Hold on. I'm getting it.
There it is.
Hold on.
Publisher for nowhabersham.com. Please go on there that day.
Well, that's right. They did narrow, which is about,
All right, here it is.
Right there.
and it was revealed earlier this week that, one element of this
I want to hear
still
what she
there,
said.
and you can see the ravine that they talked about, her falling down. One element of this
Somebody
case, of course,
videoing that,
is,
obviously.
how did she die? What killed her? She was on fire.
Ah.
There was charring in her abdomen, and it was revealed earlier this week that when she was found, her body.
What does that say? Can you read that?
Store out of reach of. Oh, that might be the lighter. That might be the lighter that she bought. It says keep and store out of reach of children or of something.
There you go. Could be the lighter, right? That you use that lighter to
package.
start the fire. I mean, why
Yeah.
is this stuff here? Why is it here? Why
And
wasn't that
And
collected?
who's taking that video? I want to back this up because I don't think we played this. I don't think I was listening to this. I was paying attention to something else. Let's listen to what she says.
Signs of paper towels that are visibly charred.
Oh, she's talking about
Where Debbie was that day.
Well, that's right. They did narrow it by about 10 minutes, Vinny. And so now we're talking about a 22-hour gap from when she is last known to have been alive to when her body was discovered at 12:44 p.m. on Sunday, September 11th. That's still a lot of unanswered time as to what transpired. But we do know that the items that she purchased at that dollar or that Family Dollar store in Clayton, which is about 12 miles north of where her body was found, those items were located at the crime scene. And I had occasion to visit the crime scene today, what's left of it and what remains. And there are still signs of paper towels that are visibly charred. The charred tree that investigators spoke of earlier in the week is still there, and you can see the ravine that they talked about, her falling down. One element of this case, of course, is how did she die? What killed her? She was on fire. There was charring in her abdomen, and it was revealed earlier this week that when she was found, her body, she was grasping a tree in her right hand, which I asked about this during the press conference today, and they did acknowledge that could indicate that perhaps she had survived the burning incident, however that occurred, and that she may have gotten up to try to walk away to the scene. There was actually a creek at the base of the ravine where her body was found, so perhaps she was headed to the water. We don't know, but there is a possibility that she did survive the initial fire.
Luke, something we were talking about last night was the purse because of the.
Again, I want to stress that this woman speaking is not an investigator. She's a reporter with that. Yeah. So
is that her video? She went to the scene. She saw these things. They were there. So why were they there? Why were they left behind? That cardboard packaging for the lighter could contain DNA and fingerprints. Why is that left behind? The paper towels could contain DNA and fingerprints. Why is that left behind? What is that red material? Is that part of her clothing? If so, why is that left behind? Right. I don't understand this. How does this reporter and other people, civilians, go there and find this stuff that's left behind? The charring on the tree. Okay. Did anybody take evidence from the tree to see if the accelerants were used on the tree? How did the tree catch fire? Okay. Did they set the paper towels on fire and then cause the tree to ignite? I mean, there's fire investigation protocols, and it doesn't seem that was followed. Well, let me back up. I don't want to jump to that conclusion, but
well, let me just show you this. So here's people, and people who are out there in the true crime land, they really don't have the experience that you have, Ed. I mean, you were in the crime scene unit for the New York City Police Department for 15 years. You were at thousands of crime scenes throughout your career in the NYPD. Here's someone that's saying that there was a civilian from Georgia, I think a male and a female couple, who went out and did that video on the scene. Thank you, Lady Butterfly, for sharing that with us. What's your thoughts on that, Ed? I saw a couple of people mentioning it earlier in the chat.
Well, apparently this news reporter did too. I mean, so and then it's a bit ghoulish, though, to be quite honest with you, that these civilians, who have nothing to do with this family or this case, just go there wanting to see this crime scene. So.
I think it is people's morbid curiosity, but it could contaminate the crime scene if there's anything there. But
listen,
there's the argument that once they take that tape down, it's free game to anybody.
It's no longer a crime scene. They drop the ball. Once they pull the tape down and walk away, right, and that place is open to the public.
Yeah, it's free game. It's free game, but it's a matter of morals and ethics, right? If you say to yourself, "Hey, I want this case to get solved," so you would think to yourself that common sense would prevail, and you'd be like, "Hey, maybe I shouldn't go tromping around there. Maybe I should videotape it from a distance."
I want to know what the decision tree was to leave that stuff behind. Honestly, I don't get it. I don't get it. Especially if you know that you purchased a lighter and there's a packaging for the lighter, and there it is. You leave it there. You leave it there. Well, who opened the package? Was it the bad guy or was it her? Who used the lighter? Was it the bad guy or was it her?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Here's Phil Grimaldi checking in the chat, and he says, "Shame on the investigators for not securing that evidence." And Ed, we went.
Phil. You know it.
Yeah, and we went through this with so many cases. Suzanne Morphew, right? We watched the Chaffee County Sheriff's Department pick up Suzanne's bike that was thrown down a ravine. Now we're talking about a body that was thrown arguably down a ravine. This poor woman, Miss Collier, Debbie, was thrown down a ravine, lit on fire, or burned or charred, and murdered at that location, or somewhere. We don't know. We don't know, right? So
It's just driving me nuts. I swear to God, I can't. It's like scene after scene after scene. This is crime scene 101. What are we doing here, folks?
right,
What
right.
are we doing? What are your taxpayer dollars paying for with these law enforcement agencies? I don't get it. It doesn't have to be because I'm from the NYPD. I mean, where you're in, we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But time after time, you leave evidence behind, and then people come and find it.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Shame on them.
Ethics and standards are pretty standard,
How could they look at that and think it's not probative?
Yeah. God, I mean, it's baffling. It's baffling to us, People are chiming in the chat. A Voice for Hope, good friend of the channel, great friend here. She says the Delphi case too. I mean, unfortunately, we can talk about this over and over again, ATS News, thanks, Amber. She's sending 100% to Ed. There's a lot of people who are agreeing.
Protocols are designed to be used from scene to scene to scene. So you do things the same way every time, and it limits possibilities of loss of evidence, cross-contamination, and that you're collecting evidence of probative value and you're getting it to the lab to assist in the investigation. Look, it's not like CSI on TV. I'm not the one going out there and slapping cuffs on people. I work for people like Phil Grimaldi. Phil gets a case. I go out, I do the crime scene. I'm there to help Phil with his case. And then I walk away from that. And now Phil has to run with that.
Right.
Okay. I'm done with it unless Phil calls me back for additional runs or assistance. Okay. But typically it's Phil's ball. He's got it now and he's got to run with it. Okay, yeah. He's got to have that EC, or he's got to make that arrest, identify the perp, or whatever the case may be. Okay, but I just can't fathom this. Because who are you helping by leaving stuff like that behind? Yeah. Okay, you're not helping the case. You're only hurting it. Okay, and then I say every scene, every time, but you know what needs to be said too? Every scene, every time, everywhere. We need national standards and protocols that the whole crime scene investigation world in the United States are following the same protocols and same procedures and doing this same investigations throughout the nation. You can't have one jurisdiction do this and one jurisdiction do that. We need national standards. And if you can't meet these national standards, then give the crime scene investigation work to another law enforcement jurisdiction that can.
Let me say it a little differently. Shit or get off the pot. Do it the right way, because there's no do-overs. When you fuck up a crime scene, you can't go back and fix it. You can't go back and undo those mistakes.
Right. We say it again and again. Shit in, shit out. Okay. Yeah. If it's shit to start with, it's going to be shit at the end of the lab analysis. Okay. Yeah. You can't fix it in the lab. And you can't fix anything if you leave it at the scene.
And I cringed when I saw this revelation and all of this stuff. I cringed when people were thinking, oh, I'm going to go back again and I'm going to videotape more. We're going to do this and we'll do this. And then I saw people in the chat from the beginning when we first went live saying that the investigators did a great job in this case. What we're seeing here, again, is unacceptable. So we could take just a quick break and a quick breather. I want to play this because at the end of this, it shows a little bit of a timeline. So I'm going to show this quick, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap it up, Ed.
Okay, I'm going to go run out my window and stick my head out and scream, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going
to take it anymore. Oh, man. Let's get the bleep machine ready. I could do Morse code with that thing. There's so many expletives that we could use. All right, let's. This is just a couple of minutes. Let's play it.
And gruesome details tonight in the mysterious and gruesome death of Athens mom Debbie Collier. New surveillance video shows Collier buying the very items that police would find just hours later next to her burned.
There's the blue package
body.
right there. I see it.
Only on 11 Alive News.
I can actually see the blue package.
Back it up.
very items that mysterious and gruesome death of Athens mom Debbie Collier.
Right.
New surveillance video shows Collier buying the very items
Oh,
that
wait a minute.
police
Maybe
would find
not.
just
I thought I
hours
saw a
later
blue package right there in her hand.
It's in her hand.
Yeah, that's it right there.
next to her
It's the
burned
lighter.
naked body.
That's the lighter.
Tonight only on 11 Alive News.
That's the lighter that we saw in that photograph there.
Police would find just
The
hours
package.
later. Collier buying the very items that police would find
It's
just
5
hours
items.
later next to her burned naked body. Tonight only on 11 Alive News, the clerk in that
Jesus.
video who is seen checking Collier out reacts to the fact that she might be the last person to see her alive.
11 Alive's Cody Alcorn is live in the studio right now. So Cody, this video here just adds another layer of questions to this already puzzling case.
No doubt, Ron, this video just adds to the complexity of this case. Debbie Collier's body was found on Sunday, September 11th. This video you're about to watch was captured 21 hours earlier, 13 miles north of the crime scene, showing Collier buying the items that ultimately led deputies to her body. On Saturday, September 10th at 2:55 p.m., the Habersham County Sheriff's Office confirms this is Debbie Collier, captured on video walking into the Family Dollar in Clayton, Georgia. She's wearing a red visor, a black purse across her chest, and appears to have her rental key fob in hand. The video jumps to Collier checking out. On the counter, a red tote bag. She then places a blue tarp, rain poncho, paper towels, and a refillable torch lighter on the counter.
I do remember her. I remember checking her out, but I really don't remember like what we talked about.
I talked to the clerk who checked out Collier. Esther Kreller told me over the phone the items Collier bought didn't set off any red flags.
It's a common thing that people buy. We were going to put up the tarps like for the winter, but then my boss said no because people buy them year round. Oh, yeah, the big bags. Yeah, people buy those a lot to put a bunch of stuff in, like reusable grocery bags.
Kreller said Collier didn't act like anything was wrong.
She didn't seem in distress.
Knowing what she does today,
Nothing looked suspicious or out of the ordinary. Nobody. I wish I would have went outside, around that time, see if anybody was with her. But who would have thought?
who would have thought 21 hours later, Collier's body would be found naked and burned along with that tarp and red tote bag 13 miles away. Habersham County says all the video they have from this Family Dollar and surrounding businesses show Collier was alone in the van when she stopped at the Family Dollar. But remember, the sheriff's office also confirmed Debbie Collier was not kidnapped and did not die by suicide.
Man, a lot of moving parts here, Cody. Thanks a lot. And folks, we want to
Hey,
break
Brian.
the timeline of this new
1 second.
information because, as Cody just pointed out, a very complex case, right? Debbie Collier's husband said the last time that he saw her was around 9 p.m. Friday, September 9th. Now, this new video you just saw places Collier in Clayton at 2:55 p.m. the next day. 20 minutes later, 3:17 p.m., Collier's daughter said that her mom sent her a Venmo payment of nearly $2,400 with a cryptic message saying in part, "They are not going to let me go, love you." At 6 p.m., Collier's husband files a missing persons report, and then the next day, September 11th, at around 12:30 p.m., Collier's rental vehicle was found along with her body nearby.
So there it was. Go ahead, Ed.
Good timeline, but if my son would have got a cryptic message like that, and he was trying to reach me back immediately, after the first couple of attempts of not being able to reach me, he'd be on the horn with 911 saying, "Hey, this just happened. I don't know what's going on. Can we try to track down my mom?" And the family tree, the dollar store, the purchase there didn't lead to her finding her body. That was the rental vehicle information that led to finding her body. I don't understand that gap, that 3-hour gap. Time of cryptic message to and it wasn't even the daughter that called. The husband coming home 3 hours later. Okay, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, that's not my area of expertise. I stick to the forensics, but it doesn't seem reasonable to me to have
Right.
that 3-hour gap.
Yeah. Again, there's so much to this case that doesn't seem reasonable, and so much of it points to points to a certain direction, but you just can't go to that certain direction. You have to look at every avenue. The Supreme Phil Grimaldi is referring to Sergeant Bill. The Supreme Commander would be pissed if one of his detectives would have left that behind. Absolutely. And I'm surprised the Supreme Commander hasn't gone crazy over this.
All right, let's just say for argument's purposes, right? That stuff was underneath the victim's body.
Right.
Okay. Once the medical examiners lifted that body and now that stuff is discovered, what happened to the crime scene people? How come they didn't step in, photograph that, and collect it, package it, measure it, put it on the sketch, and do their job? Did they leave the scene already? I mean, I don't understand. And if so, why weren't they called back to come get this?
Yeah. There's people in the chat and some folks that are on Facebook saying that the boyfriend, Amanda's Bearden's boyfriend, his rehab was just a short distance away from the final resting place for Debbie Collier. Those theories and those aspects of this investigation, you could bet your bottom dollar that investigators are looking at that and they are not going to be talking about it, because if in fact they can put him at that location or put her at that location look at what they're doing. They're tightening the noose. They're tightening the timeline. They're tightening the time of death because they're narrowing down when this could have happened. And it's a precise and tough thing to come to, but that's how they do it. That's how they have to get to where they can definitively say she was murdered between this and this time. And the only way to do it is to eliminate all of the stuff, touch DNA, things of that nature, transfer evidence. Ed, you could talk about that till the sun goes down.
Yeah, I mean, there could be hairs and fibers. I hope they took soil samples along the route, because what if they find the suspect and now he's got soil embedded in his shoes or in his clothing from that location, and then now they can link him back to that location. Again, why didn't they? There could be fingerprints and DNA on that packaging material. We got to see who tore that open, who took that lighter out. Right. I wonder if that stuff is still there.
God, I mean, I said that to myself. I wonder if that stuff is still there, but I don't want to encourage anybody to go back out there. I would hope that the sheriff's department, that they would look at this and say, hey, there's people on the internet. There is Court TV. Vinnie Politan is talking about this.
He's got a video. He's got a video. The stuff's still there.
And he's got a local news reporter. The woman who is all over all of this stuff is saying, look at this stuff. Look at what's here. Look at what was left behind, tire tracks and things of that nature. That's a paved road. So we're not going to have mud on that minivan unless the minivan traveled to a muddy area prior to that. That's a different story, right? But that will come back to the infotainment system and the navigation, because the navigation on board that 2022 Chrysler Pacifica minivan, limited edition, is going to listen. Thursday night, Tommy from the Auto Crime Detective Tommy is going to come on with us, and he's going to go into the infotainment and what the capabilities are, and again, the people who are responsible, the person or persons responsible for this, should be Brick. I think I did that well, right? Did I get that out? Yeah. Ed, there's one for you.
Says, do you have any ideas on what could be causing these discrepancies between protocols that should be followed and what's actually happening? I don't know. Is there a lack of supervision of the crime scene investigators, or is there supervisors not responding out to the scene as well? Is there nobody else looking over their shoulder as a quality control, quality assurance of what's being done at the scene? Is it a lack of training? Is it a lack of funding? They're worried about investigators getting overtime and they're rushing them off the scenes. You know, I mean, it could be any number of things, but regardless of what is the cause, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. Lack of training. Some of the people are saying, oh, I don't know. Go ahead, Ed, take over.
It could be. I mean, it could be. I don't know what standards or protocols that they're using, but you know, and again, here in New York City, when we have a body on the scene, we work those bodies together with the medical examiners, medical legal death investigators, like Barbara Butcher, when she was
Yeah.
out in the field. Okay, that body belongs to the medical examiners. But I will assist in its documentation, and you know, the body's going to get photographed by me as in situ, and then the body's going to get rolled over, and I'm going to photograph the back and anything that's underneath it. Anything that's underneath the body is mine. That's evidence for me. You know, and well, I'll make the determination whether it's evidence or not, but whether it's probative to the case, you know. But I can't see how this stuff is not probative, especially if that's the packaging for the lighter, and if that is material, that red material is a portion of her red football jersey, and the burnt paper towels. I don't get this.
Right. Sips of Coffee is concerned about you, Ed. They worry about your blood pressure.
That's all right. I'll drink decaf sips of coffee, and I'll take a beta blocker.
DNA on in the gloves is in those gloves too.
Well, but whose gloves are they? Are they law enforcement? I swear, if law enforcement found those gloves on scene and they left them, and they're possibly the perps, I'll flip out. Okay, I'll sit. I would lose it.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I can't have that. No. You know, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here, people are saying in the chat, anybody could have left those gloves behind. I beg to differ.
What did Barbara post on Twitter? Somebody said.
DutyRon and Ed, did you read Barbara posted on Twitter? She's very hurt about the case and the lack of collecting of evidence, like you guys.
Is that all, Barbara?
I gotta go look. Ed, talk to the audience and look at some more of the chat while I go and look. I'll be right back.
Well, she knows. Barbara knows the deal. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Anybody else? Ed, you're already flipping. Yes, I am flipping. Yes. But you know, you haven't seen me go Hulk. Okay. You don't want to turn me into the crime scene Nazi over this stuff. All right. You know, there's the right way to do things and the wrong way. And it takes less time to explain why you did something right than why you did something wrong. Okay. Boy, you know, who's in charge out there? I mean, what is going on? And why is this happening so often in so many different jurisdictions? Okay. It's just mind-boggling to me. Yes, DNA possibly in a van, and it won't be hard since it's a rental. Yeah, and typically they clean the vans in between. You know, it just depends on how thoroughly. But if you get one of these players in this limited universe surrounding Debbie in that van, you know, and they had no legitimate access to the van, then how did it get in there? Okay. Ed, what does it say? Ed Wallace, daughter, boyfriend, and accomplices from rehab. What's the gut say? Well, that all has to be worked out with, like, you know, people like Phil Grimaldi. The squad detectives need to go over there and interview these people, see that, you know, track their whereabouts, get their cell phone data, see if they were anywhere near this location, and if they can make that connection with Debbie. You know, that would be, you know, pretty strong evidence if they can link that individual to that scene or to the vehicle or whatever the case may be.
All right. I couldn't find anything from Barbara, not on Twitter. Maybe she put it in on LinkedIn, but I'm going to call her tomorrow. I had plans to have a conference call with her if she's available. So I'm going to call her tomorrow.
Phil, my brother from the 7-0 precinct, this was not a lack of experience. Sorry. It was common sense to take it. It was common to you and me, Phil, but apparently common sense is not common anymore.
And you know what? We are not somebody who will quickly bash law enforcement. We're not the bashing type, but when something's wrong, we are going to speak about it. And in this situation here, it's just unacceptable. And we're hoping that we're hoping that there's more clear and transparency. That the locals will talk about this, because this has to be a black eye for them right now. They got to be like, oh shit, we got to talk about this. So we'll see what they say.
So Jamie asked this question: how do you determine that you collected all the evidence at the scene and I just lost it?
Sorry,
okay.
that she sent in a super chat and I jumped on it. It wasn't Barbara. It was Jennifer Koffendorfer.
No, okay. It was Jennifer Koffendorfer, not Barbara.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw that
All right.
already.
All right. But Jamie says, how do you determine that you collected all the evidence at the scene? What's important and what isn't? Well, Jamie, we do what's called a walkthrough in our initial response to the scene, and we're reading the scene and we're making mental notes and we're looking at what's there and what's not there, what should be here and what's missing, what is here and shouldn't be here. What is a new artifact to the surroundings that we find ourselves in? Okay, like the the packaging for the lighter and so forth. I'll give you a case. I had a dump job in Brooklyn in the 75 precinct by the Bell Parkway. There was a swamp area that was being commercialized. It was going to be built up into a series of stores and restaurants and so forth. But it used to be a place where people would go and dump bodies. Well, this is what happened. A body gets dumped there and set on fire. Ooh, very similar. And then we get called out. The squad goes, patrol goes, fire goes, and this person was burnt alive. And the reason we know this, at autopsy, they found soot from the flames in her lungs. And burns in the nose and throat and so forth. Now, at this scene, it's a swampy, overgrown location. I find tire tracks that were fresh, new to the scene. I also find an unblemished steak knife that's on top of the plant life there. It's shiny, not rusty, not dusty. It is, you could tell it's a new artifact to this location. Okay. And, do a little digging a little deeper, and I find a driver's license. It turns out when I put all this stuff together and I give it to the squad, and the squad does their investigations, and they get an ID on the victim. It turns out the victim is not from New York. It's not from Brooklyn. She is from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. She was in witness protection in a hotel being guarded by the U.S. Marshals for an ATF case against a gang called the Raleigh Boys that were running guns and drugs from North Carolina up I-95 into Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And she was going to give testimony against them. The gang found out where she was being protected in a hotel before trial. They get what they call a rent-a-crack, where they give crack to a guy and borrow his car. They kidnap her out of the hotel and drive her all the way up to Brooklyn, New York, because they had to do a delivery in Brooklyn anyhow. And then they kill her in Brooklyn. Now that knife matches a missing knife from the victim's kitchen set. The driver's license is for the perp, and the track evidence matched the vehicle that was used to drive her to that scene and dump her body.
Unbelievable. And that was all great detective work and evidence collection.
Just reading the scene correctly and understanding what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So we got some guests, I see.
Yeah, we got Sleuthy and Detective Grimaldi. I'm going to add Phil first because I know he's mobile. He's just getting out of the gym. He's got to work on those 19-inch guns that he's got. So Phil is jumping in. Detective Phil Grimaldi, thank you for joining, Phil, from Police Off the Cuff. It's great to have you on here. This is Sergeant Bill's sidekick. And Phil, I mean, you worked many murder cases over your time. This is disconcerting, to say the least, correct?
Absolutely, Ronnie. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you sending me the link. I was watching it as I was in the gym, and Bill and I did a couple of shows on this Bill did quite a few of them actually. And when you see this type of sloppiness, now I'm the last one to criticize another law enforcement officer. I really go out of my way to try to give the benefit of the doubt, especially to our brothers in blue. But this looks like just, plain straight out sloppiness. I don't think that any level of inexperience would qualify to give someone a pass on this. I mean, if these items were from the body, clothing, the look like the lighter, the packaging of the lighter. Ed made all the points. I mean, DNA evidence, fingerprints could be on it. And I think I put it in the chat. What are the chances that that lighter is what started the fire on Mrs. Collier's body? I mean, I think it's kind of obvious what the answer to that is. And it's a lot of sloppy police work, it looks like to me. And I hate to even use those words, but I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah, Phil, hey, good to see you, buddy. And we
Same
got to
to you.
call the balls and strikes, Phil. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
When we do our investigations, we let the chips fall where they may. It's and this isn't the chips aren't falling in their favor on this one.
No. And I think you guys brought out a lot of great points tonight. The fact that the video showed it looked like there was no one in the front seat with her. Perhaps there could have been someone in the back seat. The mirrors were in. I think that's one of the options that might be on that vehicle when you lock it, that the mirrors may go in. So you guys brought up some really great stuff tonight. I was listening for a good part of the show, almost from the beginning. So really good job, guys.
And thank you,
Thanks,
Phil. The coverage that you guys do is just the same. It's from the police detective's perspective. You guys, walk the walk, talk the talk. You've gone out there and done, did this job day in and day out. 20 plus years for both you and Bill as a homicide detective sergeant, as a commander of the A squad up in Manhattan North homicide. Very busy location up in Spanish Harlem in New York City. So, Billy and yourself, you know what these cases entail, and the time and the effort that gets put into, and the bird dogging, as you say, and the tracking down and the spitballing and all of the stuff that needs to get done to bring evil to justice. These are evil people that commit these type of heinous crimes, and it can't get solved by somebody armchairing it from home. You have to get out there and do this stuff, and you got to do it with under the right guise of the law. You have to follow the letter of the law, or some seasoned criminal defense attorney like our good friend Joe Murray comes in and gets these fucking bastards off. And I hate to use this language, but yeah, exactly. Hold on. All right. Sorry about that. There we go.
No, listen, I get the emotion, Ronnie, because this lady met a horrible, horrible death, obviously. We don't even know the cause of death publicly yet, but it's obvious. I mean, her body was burnt. Whether she was dead beforehand, we don't even know. So again, I agree with you 1,000% on those descriptions of these people that we have to meet. And we look into the eyes of the devil, and I've done it a couple of times. I mean, certain murderers, I didn't consider them the devil, or whether it would be a bar fight or something that gets out of hand, or some drug dealer having a turf war. But there were serial killers that I looked into their eye and I knew I was talking to the devil. And at times it just gave you a feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, should I really even be here talking to this person? But you do what you have to do. It's part of the oath that you take. And if you don't take it seriously, go be in a mouse house, an inside house mouse somewhere. Don't be an investigator.
Hey, the world needs a lot of gas pumpers too.
Phil was saying, go work somewhere where we used to call it what would we call it? Out to pasture. Some of these quieter precincts where they're just getting 61s for noise and home break-ins and things of that nature. You're not getting the homicides. Kimberly Culp sent in a $20 super chat, and she says, "You guys are the best. I wish you were detectives in Minnesota when my mom disappeared / murdered 23 years ago. All these murders suck so bad. I'm bawling." Kimberly, we send you strength, prayers, and positive vibes from all three of these detectives and retired detectives and all of our chat here in Crime Time with DutyRon. Hey, listen, I have somebody who is not involved in the law enforcement end, but she is a cyber sleuth. Her name is Sleuthy on Twitter. She sends me and all of the true crime creators a bunch of things. She is awesome. I have a full timeline from the beginning to the end, and she does this on every one of the cases, and she doesn't look for any recognition. She doesn't have a YouTube channel where it's monetized. She does this because she cares about the victims, and I love that about her. So I want to add Sleuthy. She's not going to have her camera on because she's a mom, and she's got, I think, a sick child at home, and she's laying in bed, but she's wants to come on with us and chit chat for a few minutes. So Sleuthy, thank you for taking out the time to hang out with Crime Time with DutyRon. I got Ed Wallace here, obviously, Phil Grimaldi, retired homicide detective. How's everything going there? I hope you're doing okay. Phil?
Your mic is muted. There you go.
Phil, are those paper towels from the crime scene in the back?
I made a stop at Costco before I came into the ship.
Shit.
Is it toilet paper?
No, it's
Looks
paper
like-
towel, but not for crime scene purposes.
Thank you. Thank you. Sleuthy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You guys, you don't know how grateful everybody is to have people that know what they're talking about. You know, this crime scene, these crime forensics nights, I live for these because this is stuff that I always want to ask and can't.
Yeah. Well, you know what the thing of it is there's not many YouTube or even Facebook, social media. You could go on a TikTok and look at people talking about these cases. The thing of it is that we want to try to give everybody an education on what it takes truly to do these cases without giving up the trade secrets. And that's a difficult tightrope that we walk. And Phil and Ed, I know you'll agree with me. There's so much that we could be saying, but we don't.
You know what? I when I testify in trial, I have to spend a lot of time dispelling all the myths from Hollywood. We call it the crime scene CSI effect. And then we have to, okay, this is Hollywood, this is reality, so we do that. But there's so many crime shows on now. There's so many CSI type shows, Forensic Files, and all this, and they're giving away the store. It's all out there now. There's nothing, There's
and
very
they're
few
solving
things
the
that are
case,
hidden.
and they're solving the case in a 1-hour show. That shit doesn't happen in real life,
Honestly, I had a
Absolutely not.
detective tell me that once. He goes, I saw on CSI the other night that they did this, this, and that. And I said to him, and I saw on CSI that detective got a conviction in 1 hour. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Sleuthy, I want to ask you. So here's something coming in from Che Bean. I know I just butchered her name. Shay Biang. She says, "Hi, Sleuthy. I love your work. Tell us how you got started with this true crime stuff. Give us just a little. Some of the people who are watching, there's like 1,600 folks watching. What got you into this, Sleuthy?"
So basically, Gabby, I happened to catch a clip of the body camera footage playing on the TV the one day, and I hadn't heard anything about it until then.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately knew immediately what was going on, and so I was glued to everything that happened after that. And it was kind of like me just in the darkness trying to keep track of everything, and from a personal side of things, just wanting to know and wanting to look out for her, I guess. And to be honest, the critical thinking, being open and thinking as many different things as possible, having healthy debates with people, I kind of got hooked on it because I like challenges and puzzles and things like that.
Right. So it was Gabby Petito that started you with this. And you know what? That's the case that gripped the world, not just the nation. It gripped the world. We all, we look at these cases and we say, as investigators, as retired investigators, we know that there's real people behind these things. And some people lose focus of that. And when the misinformation comes out and the wild theories and the attacking of families and attacking of how mothers and fathers react to certain things, that's what makes it really bad, because these are people who are grieving the loss of their daughter, the loss of their son, the loss of their loved one. And we are the ones who go to these folks sometimes and, give them that death notification. And it's not a pleasant thing to do. It really is difficult at best to do that. And people lose focus of that because these are real live people. This is real life stuff, not just some kind of thing that you're doing. It's not a story. This is real life, you know?
It's not a show.
Hardest thing I ever had to do on the job, Ron. Hardest thing I ever had to do. I've done death notifications a handful of times, and it's sickening, to say the least. It's sickening. It's a terrible, terrible thing to have to deliver bad news that someone died. Not only it could be a death notification for an elderly person that died of natural causes, but when it's a homicide, probably the worst thing that a detective will ever have to do. But the best thing to do is to get justice by making an arrest and having the person that you know 100% committed that murder. There's nothing better for a detective. A confession, nothing better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Ed is instrumental in the beginning and most important part, you know, collecting that evidence that's going to be used at trial, that's going to be collected properly, that's
Well,
going to...
and sometimes I've been lucky and helped guys like Phil. I got the fingerprint that ID'd the perp that, you know, put him in the crime scene, or, you know, DNA of the perp. I just got a case from 1990 that they're calling me back for, you know, where, you know, they did DNA on evidence that I had collected back in 90 before they weren't doing DNA here in New York. And now they got the perp.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's good stuff. Sleuthie, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, but I don't really put much into it. If there's something I need to get to, a lot of people that are on YouTube, I usually just put it there because I have no other way to upload it, but not religiously.
Ed and I might be taking or putting an offer out to you to put together some timelines for us, because we both work full time. Ed has his own, he has his own business. He goes and teaches law enforcement agencies across the country and outside of the country. He just came back from Iraq, as a matter of fact, and we need somebody like you. And so I know that you don't do this for the money, and you wouldn't accept any money from me, but like what you just sent me on Twitter, like I don't even have the time during the course of my day to do that. I definitely have, my notepad and I've got stick-em notes everywhere, and I'm ripping them off here, I can, like in Bruce Almighty, my room can be filled with these things.
Me too. That's why I really do it, because otherwise my head is just a big jumbled mess and I'd have Post-its everywhere.
Yeah.
But I would love to help. I mean, any way that I can help, I would be more than glad to.
Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, I have so many. A lot of my questions have to do with this. Just recently, all of this, I don't know if it's always been happening and we just are only noticing because you guys are watching and you guys actually know and you're pointing it out, or what, but I've been finding it very difficult to understand how these crimes, potential crimes, are being processed, and what that means for the person who has died. I'm having a hard time, because I cannot imagine something when it's screaming at you, for someone to just not be listening and just be careless and leave stuff. And, where is the oversight with this stuff? Like, why is this happening? Is this laziness? Is it no education? Is it, does it depend on where you live? I'm not understanding how this would be acceptable. Like, I hope those pictures are not real. I thought there were gloves everywhere and trash everywhere, and pieces of a tarp that was burned on a body. Like, I just am not understanding how this is even happening.
Well, you saw the proof. The news reporter went there afterwards, after the crime scene was let down, and she got in there and she videotaped it. It was all there, laying there. Everybody here, Ron, myself, Phil, we had to testify in very hostile environments in New York City courts. Our defense attorneys here are very hostile, and they hire private detectives, and they go out and they try to punch holes in our cases. Okay. So, we've learned over the years, to dot our I's and cross our T's, because we know they're going to try to punch holes in our cases and turn us from heroes into zeros. And if they can discredit us, then everything that we've done in the case gets tainted. So, maybe these smaller jurisdictions don't have this type of situation with hostile defense attorneys hiring private investigators. But now that this stuff is out there on the news, I mean, if they do make an arrest, this stuff can come back and haunt them and can hurt that case.
Yeah. Phil, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I think Ed's making a great point. When you have a good defense attorney like a Joe Murray, we know he's a great defense attorney. His job is to impeach testimony of witnesses, and detective on the case, crime scene expert, whoever it is. All they have to do is create a little bit of doubt. The standard in the criminal justice system in the United States is it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. The person has to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they create just a little bit of doubt with regard to chain of evidence, inconsistent testimony, catch a person in a lie, or they could just make you look foolish, stumble on your words, and you could have jurors on that jury that'll say, you know what, I don't believe the police. And I've had it happen, that for some reason we had a very solid case, and the jury just said, I don't believe the police, and they acquitted the guy, and the guy definitely committed the murder. He got away with it. So again, hard lessons there, but you want to start from the beginning. When you have the responsibility of a person that was murdered on your shoulders, I took that very seriously from my first case to the last homicide case that I worked on. And that's something that's a tremendous, tremendous responsibility. And when I start out on a case, and a case like this, if I have to interview family members and ask them hard questions, I always say, if I don't get a Christmas card this year, I don't have a problem with that if I upset somebody, but I'm working for the victim. We do God's work, as we say. I'm working for the victim. So if I piss somebody off to exclude them from being a suspect in a homicide, I'm okay with that, because I'm doing my job, and that's what the job of the police is to get justice for that victim. You're speaking for someone that can't speak for themselves, so you have to put everything into it. And what we saw, and again, I know Ronnie doesn't, I know Ed doesn't, Bill Cannon doesn't. We don't like to criticize other law enforcement officers, but if those videos that we saw, those pictures are actual from that crime scene, that's just it's just unacceptable.
And I'll use another example, Sleuthy, Ed, and Phil, and I could do it in 2 letters, OJ. You look at that case and look at what happened in that case, and that is way back, right? And we're going way back. We're showing our age here, but I remember that, and I remember how hurtful that was to see him get off, and to get off because of shoddy evidence collection, shoddy police procedures, shoddy detective work. And that just, and I watched the prosecution, they were manhandled by that Cochran defense team, the Dream Team. But here he was walking free, and he slaughtered those 2 people in my eyes. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was so glad he said all that, because that's been something that's been an issue. So there has been times, and I will not lie, where just trying to make sense of a question and clarify and ask reasonable questions for the victim, that I've made people very angry. And, is it my place? Likely not. But it's just that it's the puzzle, and it's the need for a voiceless victim to, I think they deserve answers. And I was so glad to hear him just say that. And Casey Anthony, that's another one. I saw that in the chat.
I can go on and on. Sleuthy, we can go on and on about this shit. And the bottom line is that it's unacceptable. And where we come from, New York City, the largest municipal police department in the United States, we take our job seriously. Do we lose cases? Yes. Do we win a lot of them? Yes. The bottom line is that the work is only as good as what was done at the scene from the get-go. Right. We have an elite crime scene unit. Ed Wallace worked in that unit. They're arguably the best in the world. The NYPD crime scene unit is first They do everything top notch. And the reason they're top notch is because they got a lot of experience. They get the training, they get retrained, they get in-service training, they get on the job, certifications, on the job training. When you handle 2,200 murders in 1991 in the city of New York, and that continued till 95, you had 2,200, and then it tapered off down to 1,800, down to 1,600. But if you look at the years, and this stuff is absolutely, this is out there. You can go and look it up. I started the police department in 1991. There was 2,200 murders. Crime scene unit was handling those 2,200 murders. Do you think that some small little department of 90 in Georgia has seen that kind of volume? Oh, hell no. You know?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, then that should mean that this should be done even more impeccably well. I mean, if you're not overloaded, I guess, with homicides, I feel like, do you guys take so if you're in, say you have a hair license and you do hair, you have to occasionally take like extra classes if new techniques of things come out and things like that. Do you guys?
In-service training.
Yeah, so you do have to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if we have certification, we have to maintain our continuing education to maintain our certifications. And then what ends up happening is we have to retest for our certification. So when these new developments come out in forensics, it's going to be on the test. So, you know, you have to stay on top of all the new developments in your field.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be an education thing. I mean, I'm just trying to kind of rule a couple things out. So it can't be an education
You're making
thing.
a good point, because if you're not overloaded, well, we have all this training. Now we're going to go out and do it. Let's, you know, try to be expert about it. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it is a great point. You know, there's no excuse. I'm sorry. There's no excuse even if you have the volume of 2,200 homicides a year. If you do the job the right way the first time, all right, because these squad detectives are depending on me to do my job. All right, I'm there to help them, and they're there to help the family, and we're all there to help the family of the victim.
God bless you.
Read. Bless you. Was that on your end, Sleuthy?
It was my son.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is a concerning matter, and it stretches across the United States. And the problem is that, you know, it goes. Even Barbara talked about the standards across the United States and with the medical examiner's field, right? You got the sheriffs who are the coroner, the administrator, and they're doing it all. It just shouldn't be. And, you know, when you look at how crime scenes are handled within the city of New York and the 5 boroughs, you can't even get near a crime scene. I mean, granted, we have 40,000 police officers. It's like an army of cops.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, so in the 30s, so 30,000, give or take a few.
Yeah.
But you have a police force that has unlimited resources. We have like six or eight helicopters. We had harbor launch. We got the scuba team. We have emergency services. We have the bomb squad. I mean, look at the New York City Police Department. It's just ridiculous in resources. But at the same time, if you have a smaller department and you're not getting a lot of action, like we call it action, right? You're not getting a lot of cases, then you should be training up the wazoo to prepare yourself for when that big caper comes. And when that big caper comes, so you don't look like a fool, you got to be ready for it. And
you know what happens though with budget cuts and everything like that. The first thing to go out the window is the training.
That's true.
And who pays the price? The victim.
Your jurisdiction.
I mean, we should demand more. You know, listen, I'm a civilian almost 10 years now. The bottom line is like, we deserve better. If my loved one, that's like people say to me, DutyRon, you're retired. Why don't you go into the country and live in the country? Because I'm like, fuck no. If I get killed in the country, nobody's going to solve the murder. I'm staying right here. I'm staying here. You know, my boys in blue are going to figure it out, you know? So, you know, I that's my answer to people. I'm like, you know, oh, hell no. Let me hit the oh, hell no. And I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working, and I'm pissing me off.
You know, Dexter moved into the country.
Yeah, it's not working. Yeah.
You know, tonight I saw DutyRon get upset, And I don't think I've ever seen Ed Wallace get and I know Ed close
We're
to 40
pissed.
years.
Yeah,
He
we're
was,
pissed.
he was the both of you guys were upset about it, and I get it. Believe me, it really just didn't make any sense. And there might be a lot of evidence pointing to a perpetrator at this moment, but
Yeah.
wouldn't
Yeah.
you like to have that extra piece, that extra fingerprint, or that extra piece of DNA? I mean, it just really doesn't make any sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
say Phil, let's play devil's advocate, because I know this would happen here in New York with a sharp defense attorney. You're gonna get on. They collar somebody. Okay, he's the guy. All right, this is the guy that did this, right? And then they go to trial, and they're gonna say, oh, wasn't my guy. It wasn't my guy. You left that evidence out there. The DNA and the fingerprints of the actual purpose on that evidence you left out there.
Right.
Yeah.
What did they just do? Create reasonable doubt. In one
I wanted to
person
ask you-
out of 12.
Look at the
Yeah.
comment down there, Ed.
What's that?
Ed, you're so cute. Ed's going to start
Ed's got a
flipping
fan
tables.
club, huh?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. He's going to start flipping tables. Listen, man, we could go on and on. This is probably one of the longest live streams I've done in a long time, an hour and 51 minutes. We all can agree that we need to do better. Again, I want to make this plea to everybody that's here. If you like all things true crime related from the retired police detective's perspective, consider hitting that subscribe button. It's free. Hit that red subscribe button. Leave us comments down below in the comment section. Go over to DutyRon.com, and there's a spot on this website. There's all the missing person cases. DutyRon.com is chock full of information. Leave us a message there. If you want to contact me or Ed, send the messages in there. If you have a case suggestion, that's the place to do it, not in the comments. But leave us any feedback in the comments. We're always open to discussing, theories, and as Bill says, hypothesizing and theorizing, and he wants you to stop and start typerizing, right? But we want you to send us stuff with your typewriters. Hit the keyboard and send us messages. We love to get your thoughts and your input, and listen, the reason I had Sleuthy come on is I wanted to say thank you to her, because I watch Twitter. I'm out on Twitter, and I'm all over social media. I'm trying to see what's going on, and some of the things that I've seen from her are so sensible and so time factual. Like, I like that. I like when I see something and then I can fact check it and then say, oh yeah, shit, she got that right. I like that. And she does that quite a bit. So trust me, I'm not stalking you or anything, but I see some of the things that you're doing on social, and I like it. So that's why I invited you. And I don't invite a lot of people to come on here, Jamie, thank you for that super chat. She says, thank you guys for taking cases absolutely seriously. There's no other way to do it. But thank you, Jamie, for that. My cousin was killed April of 21, and we didn't get any info for over 4 months. That's a goddamn shame right there. The murderer got away. These cases break my heart. This happens in Florida. Sending love to everyone and the panel. Jamie, shoot me a message on DutyRon.com if you need to talk, or you need support, or you need anything. Please, reach out to me or Ed.
Same for me. She can message me on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah.
I got
Ed's working the switchboard right now.
Yeah, I gotta stop hyperventilating.
Holy shit! Somebody call 911 for that. All right, guys. I apologize for the cursing in this episode. I'm not really a cursor. I don't. As you guys know, it's a pretty clean channel. I don't really curse, but this thing has got me really pissed. We're all worked up over this, and you have to. If you have a mouthpiece, and we have this channel where we have a lot of subscribers, and we have a lot of people that watch us. Maybe somebody will share this, and somebody will see this from within Georgia or within these locations and say, you know what, these guys are making sense. Ed, what the hell are you laughing about? What do you see in the chat?
Okie dokie says that Phil's background reminds her of the Bohemian Rhapsody video because of the black background and just the silhouette of the face.
I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to sing.
Family. Yeah, you can sing it. You can sing it. Mouth it. I'll sing it. You do the movements. Okay.
I guess I got
from a poor family.
Let me reel this back in. Oh man, this is a show. Holy Christ. All right, listen, guys, thank you for taking time. Phil, I know you got a honeydew checklist a mile long. You got bounty paper towels in the background. We're going to get a whole bunch of feedback about that. Yeah, Phil was on the grassy knoll throwing those paper towels at the crime scene. Oh, shit, we got him. But yeah, Phil, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ronnie. I appreciate it. It was a very interesting show. I was in the gym. Costco's right there, so I knocked both out in one shot. That's how come I got the paper towel. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and it was great to meet you, Sleuthie, and Ed. Take
You
care.
too.
Hang in there. Feel good. And
Before you go,
Good seeing you.
before you go, Phil, everybody go over to Police Off the Cuff. I'll link that down below. Subscribe to their channel. Bill and Phil are two great guys, two retired homicide detectives. They know what they're talking about, and again, they're one of the suggested channels here on my suggested channels list. So go over and subscribe to Police Off the Cuff and check them out. They're covering this case extensively, and they're going to give you their perspective, which is going to be similar to ours, with a different twist. So
thank
go
you,
over there
Ronnie.
and subscribe. You got it. Thanks, Phil. I'll
Take
talk
care,
to you
Phil.
soon, brother.
Take
All
care,
right, there
guys.
he goes. There he goes, Philly, the bouncing head. This has been interesting.
I follow them, and I didn't know because he was just a floating head. I could barely see.
Yeah, well,
That is a great show.
yeah, they do, they do stuff from that police perspective, and again, like, there's no fluff there. You're not going to get shock and awe. They're going to give it to you how it is, how these cases go down, and tonight's thing was all forensics, and that's Ed's specialty. Ed's not going to come on here and tell you, I was a homicide detective. I went out and hunted down these bad guys, but no, he was instrumental in giving them the tools to hunt them down and to bring them to justice, and that's a big part of the whole team. There's a team that goes out there and gets this thing done.
Yeah, as the commander likes to say, it's the art and science of criminal investigation. I'm the science, they're the art.
Bingo. Yeah. And a lot of people are fascinated by the forensics and the science. So we're going to continue this conversation on Thursday night. We're going to have our auto crimes expert. He's going to talk about the infotainment center in a 2022 Chrysler Pacifica and what without breaching this investigation, we're just going to talk about capabilities and what they got, because what they have is, it can't be changed. What they have is what they have, and it's, you can go on and Google, and you can Google this stuff. It's out there. We're not going to give you some trade secrets that are going to let people get away or anything like that, but I think it's important that everybody hears that this minivan is going to be able to be traceable every step of the way. If it made a stop before it stopped at that location, they're going to know about it, and we'll hear it from the expert. Sleuthie,
I'm gonna jump off here because I didn't woke him up, but okay. That was one of the things that I was curious about, because they did find out that she was there via the Sirius XM. I almost wonder if it was also capable, like OnStar is, of recording conversation inside the vehicle, and I wonder if it did pick up anything inside the vehicle. It's fascinating and also very, very sad. It's like literally something out of a horror movie. It's almost like it's not even real life. But I look forward to that, and I will definitely be here Thursday. And I appreciate you guys, and thank you for having me. In any way I can help, please let me know.
I'll be contacting you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Nice seeing you.
There she goes.
Bye.
There's Sleuthie. I'll link her stuff down below. Yeah. All right. So Rocky says, "Thank you, lady," with a rose. That's a gentleman right there, Rocky.
Thank you, my lady. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Mary Glick is saying, "Great show." A lot of people are chiming in the chat. I think we did a good job here. 2 hours total.
Oh, I'm putting overtime slip in, brother.
I'm exhausted, Ed. I need to take a nap. No, I need to go to bed. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, you're an old man. Go to bed.
Really? Wow. All right, guys and girls, thank you so much for watching. And the replay viewers, we greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And let's not forget, let's keep the Collier family, her husband Steve, Debbie, let's say prayers and strength and positive vibes for that entire family. We heard from her sister, not tonight here, but we've seen, reports that the sister is talking about different things. So there's there's a whole element to this family. Let's keep them in our prayers. Let's keep them in our thoughts, and let's hope that the police and the investigators come up with answers for us sooner than later. But let's be patient as well. Ed, you got any final words for the audience?
You know what I say at this closing time. All right. You can't stay here, but you don't have to go home. No, that's not what I say. I say, well, folks, be safe. Watch your six. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Be safe, be prepared, watch your six. I'm in a funny, giddy mood right now.
Yeah, we should continue on the Patreon and do like a Patreon only after this. But Ed, I got to get to bed.
I'm going to the karaoke bar.
All right. As I always say, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially the victims of crime and their families. They need us now more than ever. Let's send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Thank you to the chatters in the live chatters. Thank you to the moderators, the mod squad. You guys are the best. Thank you to everyone who leaves us comments, gives us a thumbs up, and subscribes to this channel. We love the subscribers. Thank you so much to all of the members as well. Peace from New York. Ed, are you in New York? I don't never know where you are.
Yes, I'm in New York. I got to sing. I'm sorry. Somebody's asking me to sing.
No.
I'm so glad we had this time together. Just to laugh and have a song or two. It seems we just get started. Then before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long.
Good night, everybody.